Well, in this episode, there's a final bonus episode to the Witch Farm. If you've watched this far, thank you so much. I'm joined once again by my sister Becky.
Hello.
Hello. So this was recorded 2 months on from the show finishing. They invited the studio audience, and it sounded like a good night.
Yeah, it did actually. It would have been good to be there.
I'm sort of glad I didn't go because Liz didn't make it. She was ill.
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
So it was a bit of a catch up and remember what happened because, you know, as we struggle to quite remember. It gives a little bit of a rundown. If you remember, the farm itself had bills going crazy because of the meters, and then animals were supposedly dying and going crazy. The pig went mad.
Yeah.
The clip of Lawrence has to go. He's the centre of it all from that fella.
Yeah.
The spirit in the armchair, the lady spirit sat there, and then cut to later on, there's just a house full of spirits where all these exorcisms were happening.
Mm-hmm.
Curses, always a topic of the Welsh outback. A murder in a different farm, if you recall. Bill himself being the tortured artist who ended up drinking himself to death, sadly. Liz's possession in the kitchen, fleeting, but it's not to be forgotten.
No.
And then finally, Bill starting his way into being a witch himself, and then backing out at a very crucial
last minute,
moment. So Kieran and Evelyn are there as well, obviously. So we do actually hear Bill talk for the first time, and I don't know if you were like, I thought he does sound educated.
Yeah, and I suppose not somebody that you would think would kind of entertain that.
Nonsense. Yeah,
I agree.
Then the sort of first person on the show is a different Bill who was an antiques dealer and used to be our Bill's boss.
Yeah.
They were furniture polishers. And so Danny gets talking to him, and Bill says that he was reliable as a furniture polisher, but other people have said how he used to not show up for work a bit. That's just drink, surely.
I was just going to say that could maybe be down to his lifestyle.
This new Bill polisher says that there was Bill and Steve, and they used to get talking at the coffee break. And eventually Steve went to Hale Van Og. I mean, he did say, there was a cold atmosphere and a bit of a freaky atmosphere.
Is that because he'd been told about it and he was, almost looking for it?
Yeah, the psychology when you're not a ghost hunter, we've seen in people, they're very much on edge, and straight away you're much more acceptable.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you've been told about it, you're almost looking for it to happen.
Yeah, which I'm not saying he didn't feel that. I'm just saying it's to be taken into account.
And he maybe did feel that, but is it because of the background psychology of it? That's
in conflict to how this story ends with the recent tenants.
Yes.
Furniture polisher Bill says that our Bill was frustrated. You could tell he was frustrated, and he found it very difficult to convince people that all this was real about the house.
Yeah.
And especially as an educated man trying to say, I know it sounds crazy.
Yeah, because it probably sounds crazy to him.
Yeah, but when people say, are you sure it wasn't the, and you're like, I'm an educated man. I know the difference between that and this.
Silly things though, even if you think about if you've been there and you've seen something happen, the first thing I would always do when I'm telling somebody is by saying, I know it sounds crazy, but, you can see straight away people are like, well, did they imagine it, or did she, was it this? But if you've thought and you've racked your brains to think about all the explanations and there's nothing else it can be, if you're living in a house where you see things and hear things all the time, that would be so annoying for people not to believe you. Yeah.
Like your experience, which I think we spoke about before, the footsteps coming up through this from the cellar in the shop we were in. I mean, you and Sue, multiple people, just like this case, witnessed that. And
still talks about that today.
Yeah. And if someone said to you, you were telling them, and they were like, well, are you sure it wasn't the neighbour? Which is obviously what you would say skeptically, but you're like, yes, it was not the neighbour.
Yeah, it's the first thing we checked. Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. I'd be. It would frustrate me as well.
Yeah. So it was, he did end up drinking a lot, but the question was raised, what did get to Bill, the drink or the farm? And he was like, it was drink.
Did he drink because of the farm? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, everything in life has some effect on you, but when drink gets hold of you, I guess.
Yeah. Was he already drinking? Like what? It's hard to know what.
Well, he was drinking at the house, wasn't he? If you remember, and hinting. But we were saying like that's what creatives do.
Yeah. Yeah. And then did it just to get too much? You don't know. It's hard to know. But yeah, like you say, everything that you have, everything that happens, everything affects you in some way.
Yeah, and the things are always in the back of your head until you start talking about it. Yeah. There's things that I walk around without thinking about until conversation turns there, and then it's not it's gone away. It's just that's been shut. They go into the workshop, and Danny is struck by the strong smell of polish, and sort of, this is a bit pungent.
Mm-hmm.
Does it mess with your head? Well, yes, it does. Does that mean that all this has just been in people's heads? No, it might mean it's been in Bill's head.
Yeah, but the fact you've got kids and you've got Liz and you've got, multiple different witnesses would suggest that for it to just be, if it was just Bill, you could probably say, well, maybe.
Yeah, I'd say not. As somebody who works with strong chemicals myself.
We all know you're nuts.
Yeah. So the witch ritual that Bill took part in with very famous person, Alex Sanders, and his wife, Maxine, that was obviously a very unique thing to find in Bill's past, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very easy then to attribute everything to that, isn't it? Like that I bet that's happened to I bet that happened to, like, as in people have taken part in that type of ritual so many times and nothing's ever happened. But because of the story that followed, it's easy to almost link it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I see it anyway.
Halo Quinn is a practicing witch. Now, we've met plenty of witches, I still do, and because of the work we're in, they're not crazy nuts people. They're just like, different. But then you've got to remember that people who aren't into ghosts would watch this and go, they're crackers, them lot. They believe in ghosts,
Exactly.
But yeah, they go into a forest. He says that he met her on Instagram. Now, my Instagram is a message most days by a psychic wanting to do me a tarot reading.
Yeah.
And it's the same message. I've just felt compelled to write to you that I must do a reading for you.
I wonder how many people have they sent it to?
Yeah, exactly. And I get it off so many different psychics who, and it's like, you felt compelled to charge me 20 quid to do a reading.
Exactly, yeah.
That's because that's your business.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's I think, like you say, how many people is that message going to? It's just going to as many people as possible. They've been, felt compelled to write to everybody that they find.
But fair game, whatever.
Yeah.
But the whole ritual witch thing, what Bill was doing, the question is raised: did he open himself up to something and then not switch it off? That is something that we kind of do. We opening the Ouija board up, opening ourselves up protection wise. We do transmit in a way. We do think that.
And if you think about the protection that we do before and then taking it off after to close your mind, that's so that you don't keep it open and take it. I think that's all how I see it. Yeah.
So that doesn't sound too far-fetched. I think he didn't do a closing down, and so that might have plagued him, the fact that he's an open bottle.
Yeah, and she said, didn't she? There was a part where they said that they can still see him almost. He's still there without almost knowing that he is still open to it.
Yeah, because people who have that ability, psychic or whatever, I think they do shine, just like we shine when we put on our protection and go into their darkness.
Yeah.
It's like you're illuminated, and if you are psychic or opened up, then I think they will. Yeah, they will come towards you.
Yeah.
Then that witch in the forest goes into some sort of dodgy song, and yes, it's quite amusing, But chants have been used for generations because of their rhythmical, hypnotic, a trance-like state. That's just, I don't really have a problem with how anyone does protection. If they think they're going to do a prayer, if they're going to imagine themselves covering themselves in a white veil, it's the mindset what triggers.
Yeah, it opens you up.
So if they want to dance around singing a song, I'm personally totally on board with that. I mean, if that's how you want to do it, that's fine.
No, she was saying, wasn't she? She was like, if you're driving after this, don't sing it. Well, I was driving, listening to the podcast, and as she's going along, I'm thinking it in my head, like, and then she said, don't drive and sing it. So I was like, oh,
yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's proven in sort of pseudoscience, I suppose, that you can look at hypnotists. Darren Brown will click you into that hypnotic trance in a moment. It's science. It's not supernatural.
Yeah. Your mindset again.
Yeah, it's the mindset. Yeah. Kieran naturally rips into it in the same sort of vein. Yes, it's a hypnotic trance, and it's a way that people just convince you. But I'm also 50% on our side. Like I say, I think you can open yourself up. That's effectively what we do.
I agree. And I feel like the more I've listened to, when I've listened to this series, the more I do like Kieran. I feel like he just says it how it is, doesn't he? Like, he just says what he thinks, and then he just takes the backlash. And I love that. I think that's good. And I think that's what when we go out and we do things, the first thing we always try to do is to explain it naturally and think about, okay, well, what could it have been? And once you've ruled all of those options out, it's at that point you'll be like, okay, well, maybe we have got something actually that we can't.
The story went to Egypt then, a flashback, if you will, to the pyramids of Giza, where it was Lawrence, Bill, and Liz in a tomb, and they see lights shimmering. I mean, there shouldn't be lights like that in a tomb.
Yeah. And it's more Liz, isn't it? It's Liz who kind of sees.
Yeah. But then the atmosphere turns to one of threat, one of fear, and I think I've always had to keep the team's fear in check. Not so much these days, but in the early days when we were all new.
Yeah, definitely.
You had to stop fear spreading.
If I look at you and you don't look comfortable, instantly I'm like, oh, 10 times worse.
Yeah, and then Bill's like, it felt evil. But you could hear on the reconstruction that I can imagine if one of you or two of you start saying something's not right, and you've got a kid there, he's going to be like, oh my God. And then the three of you,
Yeah, definitely.
Now, that feeling is also something I don't feel anymore, but I remember living alone probably 6 times in my life where I have suddenly felt fear sat at home, like something is in the house, and I've sort of known it was there or imagined, whichever you want to choose. I just don't have that anymore because my fear just got killed by what I do now.
Yeah.
But
you'd confront it now. Like, if that happened, you'd probably be like, all right then, who is it?
Exactly what happens. Yeah. Liz also saw those lights back at her barn, though.
Yes, she did. That was once, wasn't it? She saw them. I thought she said. Was that where the pig went mad?
Yeah. So were they just spirit lights? Is she just, because I've heard mediums tell me that in the most boiled down form, our souls appear as little tiny lights.
And it's weird because she's never, obviously she goes on to say, she's never experienced anything since.
No.
So that's interesting.
So, doesn't prove anything. So yeah, seeing that in the barn, it doesn't prove anything at all, but it's just an interesting callback to Egypt.
Yeah. And you think, could it be linked? Could it not?
Yeah, because I think that's where that seems to be where they're heading with this Egyptian link. Ken Griffith, an Egyptologist, says that in Egypt people do feel the energy in these tombs, and I think it's a bit like when you walk into a church.
It's an atmosphere more than anything.
Atmosphere, does that come from the worship or does it come from psychosomatic?
Like, in my mind, I think I could walk into a church. I mean, I could walk into a church, which is a safe place, right? Isn't it? It's meant to be a safe place. You walk into a church on your own at night time, that'd be pretty creepy, I think. Even supposed to be a nice, safe space. I think it's just atmosphere. It's just because you know what it is, you know what the building is. And I feel like that would probably be a similar feeling if you were to go to the I've never been, but to go to the pyramids.
I would put it to you, though, if I walked you into a church or a pyramid blindfolded, you wouldn't feel it. You've got none of the visual cues.
Yeah, no, yeah, you wouldn't. I think it's what you see and you associate that then with spirits or whatever you want to call it.
So Liz's mum finds a pendant at the farm, and apparently Bill picks it up and gets zapped off it. That's just what happens, isn't it? I don't smash every car door to pieces that gives me an electric shock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
I guess the strangest thing was she says that she didn't buy anything there from Egypt. So where did it come from? But I don't know. I feel like it's a bit of a stretch saying that it's just appeared and.
I think it's the Egyptian part. What's a stretch? It's jewelry.
That's it. Yeah, it's cut. Where's it come? What? Yeah, it's not Egyptian jewelry, is it? Like It's not
just fancy jewelry that in that style, maybe.
Yeah, that you don't remember buying, or someone's found on the land and put down, or
Yeah. So it's old jewelry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be 30 years old. You'd be like, oh, that's old and fancy. It could be 300 years old. But I'm watching Curse of Oak Island. When they pull jewelry up from there, you'd say it looks Egyptian because it's on it,
Yeah, exactly.
They talked about 8 tons of mummified cats being shipped over.
Yeah.
So all sorts of junk gets spread all over the world, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But obviously there's a link of the shadow figure, what the kids and Liz saw. It becomes apparent that it had a bird's head, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I didn't remember that. I'd forgotten that.
I don't think they said bird's head. They just
big bloke with boots.
Yeah.
So that it's not something I was like, oh, I didn't remember that. But yeah, I suppose if you want to link it, you could link it. But again, is it I don't know, is it a stretch? Is it like almost assuming, like if you've got your finger on the board and you've got JOH that's been spelled out, is it just moving it to N automatically?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because they'd obviously, I don't know, it looked like a bird's head, I guess. I don't know what else that would have been, but even the Egyptologist was like, yeah, well, it could have been anyone. There's hundreds of people, that all the rage. But Bill's grandma also being an Egyptologist and possibly there when, Tutankhamun's tomb was opened.
Yeah, that's strange.
I mean, I don't think it's related to the activity, but it is strange. Yeah.
Another link. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really cool. I'd love to do it.
So Bill must have known that when he went to Egypt. He must obviously have, I imagine, been aware that in the family.
That's a pretty cool story that you'd think would have been told to you.
Yeah, maybe that's where a lot of his spiritualism came from.
Yeah, and his interest in Egypt as well.
Yeah. So then Liz is on Zoom, and Becca, the daughter, who I don't remember being in it.
She was on it, but only briefly. She was in there, but the son I don't think was.
No, baby Ben, all grown up now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Liz, as you say, says she did not have paranormal experiences before or since.
Yeah.
I mean, she's on this program, but I think Danny's such a respectable person. You would come out of the woodwork and say, okay, I will revisit the situation. Yes.
Yeah. And it's also like they all said, didn't they, that they were humbled by how many people were actually interested in it.
Yeah. They didn't sound like big shots, like, oh, yeah, I'll tell you all my story.
No, they sounded like a really nice family.
They do, yeah. Now, young Ben, he saw, the kids both saw the spirits, but Ben says he saw the old lady and felt protection from her.
Yeah, because I think, and he said, didn't it, everything else in the house was so oppressive and she, even though she didn't really do anything, she just kind of sat there. He felt protected by her, I think, which makes sense. I can understand why you'd feel like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I do believe there are protective spirits around all of us. I mean, look, we did a Ouija board at my house last week, and the protective nature came through very strong. And I think we all have that. It makes sense that dead ancestors are watching over us. We've learned through spirits telling us that it's some of them take jobs. They don't necessarily know you.
Yeah.
Or they might know your dead relatives, but you haven't got a hope in hell of guessing who they are.
Or they're just good people.
Yeah,
know?
good people,
All
yeah.
you do is look at York.
Spirit, yeah.
That, I mean,
workers.
Talk about like your protection there.
Yeah.
That
We'll come back to that.
Yeah, nothing beats that.
Ben even talks about his body reacting to it. It's not just a mind thing or imagination. He's like, I had a physical.
And as a child, he said, didn't he? As a child, you don't have that experience to go off. You just fear.
Eddie Burke's the ghost hunter. They had to like clarify because Kieran, like you say, out and out said, "Nah, I don't rate him."
That made me laugh so much though, because the lady came on defending him, and you know, you can't call him a liar. And Danny said, didn't he? So does that change your opinion, Kieran? And he was like, nope.
Yeah, he is just playing the odds. Kieran has researched this for years. He knows the tricks of the trade, and he's just like, probability dictates to me that he's no different because it just sounds like all the other ones I know.
Yeah.
But he then did say, I can't say for truthful. I don't know for fact, but that would be my hunch.
And I get it. Like he said, I'd almost be disappointed if he hadn't done the research.
Yes, but we don't research places, do we? That's part of the fun.
No,
We don't want to be tipped.
But we don't go to houses as mediums, do we? We don't go there to say, you know.
Nobody expects anything from us. My expectation is always, I say, look, expect nothing.
Yeah, because there's been plenty of times when we've gone and nothing's happened.
Yeah. We don't say, tell you what happened. We'll do a board and we'll be all singing and dancing. We don't say that.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas I think it was a little bit different with this.
Yeah. What do you think of Eddie then? Do you think he was genuine?
I'm very sceptical of mediums, just in general. Nothing.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing if there's anybody watching who is a medium, then get in touch with Chris and come along to one of our investigations.
Yeah. I desperately want them to be true, and so I'm always thinking the next medium is the one who was gonna.
Oh, it'd be amazing. I just feel like I've never seen it, and I find it hard to believe that it could be true. But then again, people watching this could be like, well, I find it hard to believe that any of it's true. So it's really hard because I've just not got experience in it, that's all.
Exactly. In 1995, the 8th of June, Eddie rocks up with 3 highly reputable ghost hunting paranormal investigators. I mean, I didn't know Montague Keane. I didn't know Ralph Noyes, but I was certainly aware of Maurice Grosse since being a child.
The dream team, they were described as, weren't they? Really?
Yeah. So they start feeling the temperature drop and on this final exorcism to cleanse the farm. I know we've had the temperature drop, and I mean, it's not just a degree, it's chilling.
It's freezing. Like you literally shiver, don't you? You shiver.
Yeah.
And it just, in the blink of an eye.
And I was talking to my son, who is obviously big on physics and high on skepticism, and I was saying, what do you think's happening then if a spirit makes a cold spot? How, he says, well, it doesn't make sense, because if spirits take energy out, and like you hear about the heat death of the universe, when energy dies, there's no heat left. And if they're taking the energy, they're taking the heat energy. That's what.
Aye, that makes sense.
So if they draw the energy out, they literally draw the heat out.
That's interesting. I'd never thought about it like that.
He just says that's physics.
So scientifically, it would make sense.
Yeah. Temperature drop, and then tensions in the room at that time rise. It's all about keep the circle, hold the circle. York all over again. Us holding hands, draw across.
Honestly, still even now just gives me goosebumps.
Yeah. This isn't a person, it's a tulpa. It's a creation made by a summoning, a ritualistic thing. Again, taking it back to me and Lucy in the cellar at dog daycare, summoning things up. And it worked.
Yeah, it did. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you. High five. So yeah, they see the scary shadow man. And, it's an ancient energy. What's to blame? It's been here for a long time before this house ever was. Compassion is the key, says Eddie, which is how we're going to battle this thing. But not with a hatred or pushing you out, but saying, tell us your story.
Yeah, and she was saying, wasn't she, you can walk out to the woods now, you can leave, Yeah,
yeah. But so many times, in fact, that is our only approach. No matter what we come up against, the nastiest spirits, we always hold our ground and say, look, stop being a dick.
Yeah.
And we're here for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and also it's that, I think we've had people or spirits come through, it's more a case of like a reasoning, like, look, can you back off? Can you let them live in the house, let these people live in the house without, they don't want to be scared. It's coming to an agreement with them almost, rather than, I think when people go in and they're like exercising the house, and that's just going to piss people off.
Yeah. It's all about compromise, isn't it?
Yeah.
The activity predates the riches living there even. So it's not like Bill has brought something in because it was already there with previous tenants. Not so much Bridget, the one who only had a spinning wheel turn now and again, But they do mention people in the mix, the housemates, and the energy of the area can trigger different activity, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, and they talk through a few of the different things that had happened in the house, don't they, previously? It's just the amount of activity. There's just so much that happened when they lived in it that it's so hard to kind of just brush it off as natural.
But what hypes it up was maybe the children as well, having all that young energy on the land,
That's a good point. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Kieran says, a cocktail of psychology, all playing off each other. And I completely get why he would say that.
Yeah, definitely. Fear spreads
But I don't think you see things from a fear spreading. I don't believe that's the case. So I'm tipped in the favor of the family. I'm like, I think you had a haunting.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's too much. And it's not just a sighting of one thing by one person. It's multiple different things. The energy bill, the footsteps, the sightings.
And we are left with the present tenants finally getting in touch and saying, look, I really liked that. Yeah.
I loved it. I loved the piece that they'd written. It made me feel just so calm.
Yeah, it was well written, wasn't it?
Really well written. I loved it.
So anyone who's not listened to the podcast, which they should have done, but just they say how tranquil it is and how lovely it is on this farm, and has been for 25 years.
Yeah, it was quite funny as well, wasn't it? Like they said about the owls.
Yeah.
Nesting, and then.
So they've obviously listened, don't they?
Yeah. Oh, they've definitely listened. Which, to be honest with you, that's brave. I don't know if I'd want to know.
Yeah, that's your house.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to know what's going on in it.
No.
But they're obviously happy there. 25 years and nothing.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. And that's it. I mean, what a fantastic podcast that was. I loved it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really like Danny as well. I think he does it really well. He puts it together really well.
Yeah, I mean, respect to Danny. I did, as I say, I messaged him on some social media and he read it, but never replied. But, I said, look, I'm doing this on your show. I'm not using any of your sound footage or anything.
Yeah.
So it's just nice to know that he's not gone, no, you're not.
Yeah. Hopefully he'll have, you can have to send him the link and see if he'll have a quick listen. Leave a comment.
I'm sure he knows, messaged him enough. I'm sure he knows. I messaged him about York and everything, thinking, cover this case, That
would be great.
Yeah. But anyway, God bless him. And thank you very much, Becky, for entertaining me along this journey.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thanks for everyone for watching. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
See you later then.
Bye.